Good morning. This is Virtual PBX-admin training. This will be the last training of the year as we're rounding in to the new year. I hope you all had a great Christmas for those of you who celebrate. And I wanted to let you know that for the first part of January, we will not be having trainings. We'll resume on Tuesday, January 18th, 2022. So if you need trainings going forward, you'll just want to review the DVR trainings that we have here on our YouTube channel. I'm just giving people a minute here to get logged in if they're going to join us or not. If you have questions as I go through features, please make use of the chat feature and I will answer them as I see them. Sorry about that. And where was I? Oh, all right. So yeah, if you have questions, feel free to use the chat. I'll answer them and even go back to it if I missed, if I'd gone on and missed the topic that was asked about. But let's go ahead and get started. So we have our login screen, which is at dash.virtualpbx.com. You can also get there from the virtualpbx.com site. If you mouse along the top, you'll see a blue bar. There's a login link there and a support link there. And that will take you to this page. I do recommend bookmarking this page so you can get here easily. And to log in, we need your username, which is your email address, right? Either the email address you use to sign up with us or the email address your admin used to create your user. Your password should have been emailed to you. And then we need the account name, which is typically your company name. Now, if you don't have your password, over here to the bottom right, just above the sign-in bar, we have the forgot your info link. And then we need two of these. Okay, the one piece of information we do need is your email address, right? Email or username, right? So that first box has to be an email address. Then we need one of the two, either your account name, right, company name, or a phone number that's on the account. Right, so that's a phone number your customers call to get to your system. Then you would click on reset password here. This will send you an email. It will have a link. And in that link, it will get you logged in temporarily so you can change your password. Right? And then it takes you back here so you can use that password, but also so you have the option to click on the Remember Me box. Excuse me. And then we'll click Sign In. And it looks like I had a typo somewhere. I'm going to assume. Oh, actually. There we go. All right, so I'm using a test account. It's been a while that it's been in existence for a while. I've logged into it several times, so it takes me right to my dashboard. If it's your first time logging in, you actually don't get taken to the screen right away. The dash wizard comes up, and you are taken to your account page. Right, so here is where you can, if you're logged in yourself, this is where you would change your own password, right? You click edit here and enter in a new password. As an admin, you also have the account level settings, so you can change like your time zone. If you change your company name or the account name, I do request that you send an email to our billing team. There'll be some information they'll need to update on their side. It isn't automatically linked to the dashboard. Now, as I said, this is a test account, so I don't have everything that shows up here on the left that you would on your account. So on your accounts, under where it says user, you would have a billing section. That's where you would update your credit card. You could see your service plan. You could see who your billing contact is, right? It's essentially the owner of the account. And you can change that information and update it. And you can see your previous invoices. Now, when you're done with this area, you just click close to the top right, and then you'll be taken to the dashboard. Now, also along the top here, right, if you click on your name, that'll take you back to that account name. For many of you, you will have a Dnd toggle or do not disturb. Basically, if it's white, that means it's active. And this means basically you're telling the system to not send calls to you. Right? Calls will go to voicemail. The reason my user here does not have it is because I'm actually part of an ACD queue. Do not disturb, and ACD queue users don't mix well. So that's why it's been removed. Then we have the question mark icon here. And you see I have chat with us, which will open up a chat window at the bottom right. And then you could speak to a support staff member. You can go to the online store. This will open a new tab and go to store.virtualpbx.com. This is where you would order a VoIP phone or a router, etc. Learn more. This opens up a new tab and takes you to the support pages, so you can look at particular guides about different features. This blank space can sometimes be filled if you have a web phone assigned to you, right? So I currently do not, so that's why it's blank. But if I assign a web phone to myself, then I would have a link here that would take me to webphone.virtualpbx.net, again in a new tab. And the web phone allows you to use Chrome or Firefox on a computer to make and receive calls. Right? It uses your internet connection. So it's a kind of a VoIP phone. Got that hamburger icon here, or the menu icon, 3 horizontal lines. This takes you to other parts of Dash. Some of these features, like dynamic caller ID, are plan specific, right? So they're on some plans and not others. Others are included, like the dashboard, which we'll be spending most of our time in today. And we'll be going through always, at least in some detail. And then we have the logout icon. Now here in the middle, I have total users. These are people on my account who make and receive calls. If I'm on a per user plan, that means I'm paying for each user, right? So each additional user would increase my bill. Likewise, if someone leaves my business, I can remove them from my account and I would save some money on my invoice. Then we have total devices. I have 36, and then a breakdown. Now, keep in mind, Dash was designed with VoIP in mind, right? VoIP is Voice over Internet Protocol. It uses your internet connection to make and receive calls. So first up, we have a soft phone. This is a software application that acts as a phone, right? So it's usually on a computer, can be on a tablet, can be on a cell phone, right? Smartphone. But basically, it's an app. It then uses your internet connection to make and receive calls. There are many companies who have soft phones. We have our own, which would be included in that 14 or that 12, listing there, right? But if you get a soft phone from, say, a company called Counterpath, right, it would count as a soft phone on your system. The web phone, I've got 10 of them here. Again, it is technically kind of soft phone, right? Because a browser is software, but it was developed later into the system, so it has its own heading. Cell phone, that's pretty self-explanatory. Most of us have encountered these before. And then we have the SIP phone. SIP is a kind of physical VoIP device, right? So it's a piece of hardware, right? Sits on your desk. You can pick up a handset and dial on it to make and receive calls, but it still uses your internet connection. There are multiple kinds of VoIP phones on the market, right? So we are SIP compliant or SIP compatible. So when you're shopping, that's what you would want to look for in terms of the specifications of the devices you're looking at. Right, unregistered devices. This actually is in relation to my SIP phones. So I have 3 unregistered devices, meaning the system knows they're not connected, so it cannot send calls to them or from them. That could be because they're not plugged in. That could be someone's having an internet outage. Could be a network issue, bad router setting. All right, then we got total numbers. Oops, did not mean to do that. So I have 19 phone numbers on my account. Typically speaking, most of our customers have anywhere from 2 to 15 phone numbers as part of their plan price, right? So they have that included. So I'm over that 15, so I'm paying extra for 4 numbers, at least, right? So something to be aware of. And then I have first breakdown here of assigned numbers and spare numbers. An assigned number means I'm using it, right? Someone can call that number and speak to someone or leave a voicemail or join a conference, or they're sending it to a fax, right? They're sending a fax to one of my numbers. Spare numbers, where I have 2, that means it's a number on my account, so it still counts as part of my allotment, but I'm not currently using it. So for instance, if I had a Christmas promotion running, and now that's no longer Christmas, I could take that number out of service, so that way I'm not getting calls about a promotion that's no longer valid, at least on those numbers. All right, second breakdown here, USDID and US toll-free. So the US toll-free is actually US Canada toll-free, right? It's an 800 number, 888 all the way down to 833 currently, right? USDID, that just means a US local phone number, right? So you can have a phone number in Chicago, Illinois, or in El Paso, Texas. If you want to go further east in Miami, you can get a Miami phone number. It would show up as part of this toll. You can have international phone numbers on your account. If you're interested in acquiring a phone number from another country, then you need to email our porting team. That's porting at virtualpbx.com. They'll need to know the city and country that you want a number in. If there's additional requirements from that country, the porting team will let you know what those requirements are. Once we get those documents from you, then we submit that. Once that's approved, then we can get a number for you for that city and country. And some countries don't have much in the way of additional requirements, so it's going to vary quite a bit. Conference bridges, I have 3. That means I have 3 users I've enabled the conference feature on, meaning those 3 people can host or moderate a conference. Now we're going up here to the top right. We have my main numbers. I have 3 of them here. These numbers all act the same way and they behave in the same fashion. So they would all have the same main greeting, for example, and they would have the same routing options. Then I have my conference number, and you can have multiple conference numbers if you're so inclined, but this is a phone number that everyone calls to join a conference. Whether they're your staff member, one of your vendors, one of your clients, they would all call this number, then they would enter a conference room number and a PIN number. Fax box number, you can have the one main fax box phone number, and this is your inbound fax number. All right, then we got the company directory. This downloads a CSV file that has your users with their extensions and I believe their VoIP devices. It's been a while since I've downloaded that. The soft phone directory, this is for use with the VirtualPBX desktop soft phone application. You would download this file and then upload it to the VirtualPBX desktop soft phone app. This will allow you to see the status or presence of your other staff members in relation to your VirtualPBX soft phones, right? So if all your staff is using the VirtualPBX soft phone and that's it, then you'll be able to see if someone's on a call or not. So it's okay to call them. Now, if you have users who have both, say the VirtualPBX soft phone app and say a physical VoIP phone, right? It's not going to show you the status of that physical VoIP phone, right? So they might just appear to be available on the soft phone, but if you call them, right, then they may not pick up because they're actually using their physical VoIP phone for another call. All right, store discount code. So just for being a Dash customer, you get a store discount code that you can use on the store.virtualpbx.com. And then we have the account realm. This is used for a couple things. One, it's an account identifier. But it's used to program a third-party soft phone application, right? So you got something from Counterpath, or even a third-party physical phone. It's one of the 3 key pieces of information. It's also used for sending a fax out. So for Dash, for sending a fax out, it's actually email to fax. So you create an email like you normally do, right? You're emailing cousin Bob. In the to field, instead of putting Bob's address, you put the plus sign, the number 1, the area code and phone number you're faxing to, then the @ symbol, and then your account realm. Then you attach a PDF or TIFF and click send. Just one attachment per email. You want to make sure it's a PDF or TIFF and that you're using your email address that you used to log in with. It's typically what you want to use. All right, up here we got the caller or the company caller ID. Unfortunately, my streaming software doesn't like pull downs often, but you can select any of your main numbers on that first pull down. It says the company caller ID number. This is the default phone number for your system, right? This will show up in a couple of different ways. Then we have the company caller ID name. You would enter 15 characters, including spaces and special characters. Once you click Save Changes, that information is transmitted to the other carriers who support Cname. They will update their databases. It takes about 3 business days for them to do so. Some things to keep in mind about Cname. Not every carrier supports it. So when you make an outbound call from your VoIP phone, right, you're calling a client, your call will route through several different carriers to get to your client. If one of those carriers does not support Cname, then your Cname information doesn't get through to your client. They'll see your phone number, right? But they won't say, they won't see ABC cleaners, for instance. Additionally, when you're calling a cell phone, the cell phone providers are very strict about what they show on their cell phones within their network. I use AT&T, for example, and I have to pay them, I think it's at $10 a month or something like that, if I want the company Cname for every call to show up on my cell phone. I'm personally not willing to do that, so I get a lot of phone numbers that don't have any Cname information associated with them. Right? It's also your cell phone. The cell phone carriers are the ones who put in that spam risk or telemarketer label on phone numbers. They have websites where you can buy the providers, right? So like AT&T, Sprint, etc., where you could put in your company name saying, this is my company name, this is my phone number, we're a legit business, right? And then they can that will eventually update their databases. All right, next up we have the company emergency information, right? This needs to be an address in North America. And this will be the default information that is sent to emergency services if someone picks up a VoIP phone on your account and dials 911. Now, every phone number on your account can have its own individual E911 address associated with it. And each of your VoIP phones, you can select what E911 they use when they do call 911. Right? So you can have the correct address for where your staff members are located. All right, hold music. So Dash defines hold music as once a call has reached a user, and then that user has pressed hold on their VoIP phone. That's when hold music will play. Now, you can upload your own files. They just need to be in a .mp3, .wav, or .ogg format. You want to make sure they're recorded in mono, not in stereo, and that they're under 1 megabyte in file size. But you would then find the file on your computer. You would click the up arrow icon. It will upload the file, and then you would click Save Changes. And now for whenever any of your users press hold on their VoIP phones, that file will play. All right, hours of operation is actually part of main number, so we'll just go straight there. And first up, we have our main company numbers. So we see my 3 numbers here. Now down here at the bottom, I can add from my 2 spare numbers if I want to. All right, I would just click on the box in front and then add selected, and it would show up here. You also have the option to buy numbers. Now, even if you don't have any phone numbers assigned to your account, it still says buy numbers. That just means that's how the nomenclature the engineers used to add a number to an account. Right? But then you have the option of local and toll-free. Toll-free, you just pick the toll-free prefix you're interested in, click search, You're going to double check to see what numbers are currently available. And this is a dynamic list, meaning if I come back here in an hour, there might be different numbers available, right? Or not available because someone took them. But you would click add, it adds it to your cart. You still see the number here. You can have the option to remove it. And you can add additional numbers if you are so inclined. So you can add multiple numbers at once. And then you would click on by numbers. All right, now this process, the system is, again, double checking to make sure someone else didn't take the number while you were deciding. It says, okay, no one did, and now it's assigned to your count. And now let's say I decide that I don't want to use this 323 phone number any longer, right? I can unassign it. So now it's no longer a main number. However, it's still on my account, right? I haven't removed it yet. It just became a spare number. For phone numbers, you have this little gear icon here. So this is where you adjust caller ID settings. So you can adjust the outbound Cname information, as well as turn on the ability to accept inbound Cname information. Right, here's the ability to add E911 to a specific phone number. And then prepend is a VoIP feature. You can add text in front of the caller ID that shows up on your staff members' VoIP phones displays, right? So I could put in promo, click Save Changes. So now when a customer calls in on this 877 number, right, and then gets routed to one of my staff members, the word promo will show up on their display and then that person's phone number. Right, so it gives my staff members a heads up about what the call might be about. All right, local numbers slightly different in that you need to know the area code that you're interested in. So if we do 408, do a search, and we see we have several numbers to choose from. Now, what can happen is you can get this message here, right? So 310, it's the original Los Angeles area code. That has been split up several times. There are overlays now, etc. So what you would want to do is, like, if you have to have a 310 area code phone number, you can email our porting team and ask for a back order for a 310 area code phone number. The downside for that is we have no idea when we'll get one, or even if we will. So there's no way we can give you an ETA because we're waiting for someone to give up their 310 area code phone number, right? That makes it available, and then we try to get it. What you might want to look at, though, is for a nearby area code or an overlay and see what's available, because then you can add one of those and simply add it to your account. All right, next up, we have office hours strategy. You can be 24-hour open office or choose to be custom office hours. When you do so, for each day of the week that you're open, you put a check mark, and then you put your hours of operation, or your open hours, right, in these boxes here to the right, and that's in 24-hour or military time. And then you also have the option down here to say you're closed for lunch, and that means your entire system is closed for lunch, right? So everyone goes to lunch at the same time. Then we have office holidays. So first, are you closed for holidays? Put a check mark here. And then you have the option here to add holidays. You have single day, date range, and advanced, right? Each one of those creates a new row. Here you would give it a name, and then you select the month and the date, right? Then you would click on Save Changes. For date range, you should have one down here, right? So for Christmas break, we said we were closed here from December 24th through the 28th. So actually, this system would still be in closed mode. I can, no, doesn't like that pull down. And then lastly, one thing for Christmas break or any date range, notice that there's no year indicator. So that's why we split up New Year's Day and New Year's Eve to have their own individual ones. And that's just so the system, to prevent the system from possibly erroring out. I haven't encountered that lately, but not having the year there can sometimes put the system in after hours mode all the time. And then for the advanced option, like we have here for the retreat, I select a month, and then this second pull down, I have the options of 1st through 5th as well as last. And then I pick the day of the week, right? So 3rd Friday in May, company picnic day, right? So that's our holidays. And then click on Save Changes. And then we have incoming call handling. So this is in relation to my main numbers, right? Those 4 numbers I have up there now. And I left it at 24-hour open office, but I did say we're closed for holidays. So that's why I have these 2 sub-tabs, right? If you have office hours, right, you will have an after hours tab, which should show up over here. Likewise, if you're closed for lunch, you'll have a lunch hours tab also show up. But all of these options, right, these tabs have the same basic routing options. So calls coming on my main numbers during my open hours, I'm sending them to my virtual receptionist. This is a link. And here I have my routing options, right? So my main menu, I would then click on Add Route. And here you have 0 through 9 plus star, and then the default action. And then here, we'll go up here, you can choose where it's going, right? So Smart PBX directory, right, dial by name directory. You can set it call a menu option to directly to a specific person, right? So one of your users. I can send it to a call queue if you're making use of queues. I can send it to a specific phone. I don't typically recommend this because if that phone doesn't have voicemail built into it, right, then either the caller is just hanging there forever trying to reach in, or they just hang up and you don't know what they were calling about. Scroll down here. You can select a media file, right? So one of your greetings or even hold music. Now, once that media file stops, right, once it ends, right, the call ends. So not, again, not always ideal. Groups are departments. They're actually related to queues. But basically, if you want to send it to a group of people, right, it's like a front desk team, etc. Advanced call flows is if, in this case, is if you're making use of submenuing. And then you can choose to have it go to a voicemail box. Now, if you don't want a route in place, or like in this case, I have 2 default actions here, right? I can just click X to it to remove it. But these are what the button presses you're giving your customers to press. Now, over here on the right, we've our greetings. And here are your greeting options. So first up is text-to-speech. You simply type in what you want the system to say. You click Update. You would then click on Save down here at the bottom, and then Save Changes back under the incoming call handling. The text-to-speech greeting is limited to about 250 characters, not words, characters. Once you click Update, Save, and Save Changes, the system then names the file like main, in this case it would be main open hours menu TTS. It uses the same file name for every version of this that I create, right? So if I come in here an hour from now and type in a new text-to-speech greeting, it uses the same file name. That can be a little confusing down the road because I'm like, oh wait, I wanted the one I created originally, but they have both the same file name. So my recommendation when you make use of text-to-speech greetings is after you create one, right, from the first one on, go to your greetings tab, which we'll be getting to shortly, find the file and rename it to something that you can recognize, right? Like main greeting and give it the day's date, that sort of thing. Like hold music, you can upload your own main greeting file, right? .wav, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono, under 1 megabyte. Just find the file on your computer, click Update, Save Changes. You can choose from the existing greetings. So any media file that you've already uploaded or added to the system will show up in this pull down. Oops. And then you can select it. Then you would click Update, Save, and Save Changes. Recorded over the phone. So by default, the system wants you to use a VoIP phone. That's what this pick up a phone registered in this account. Now, if you go under here under settings, and then we have allow outside recording. If you turn this on, now you can call in from a cell phone or a landline. You still need to know the PIN number. This PIN number is specific to this time of day, right? And it's going to vary from account to account. So if I wanted to change my holiday greeting, I had to make sure I'm in holiday mode and have that holiday PIN number. Also, for new accounts, right, when you first call in to your main phone number, right, it will tell you that there's no menu set or no greeting set up for this menu, and then ask you for the PIN number. Right, then you would just follow the instructions and record over the phone. If you already have a greeting in place, so let's say you put a text-to-speech greeting to start, then you call in because you're like, oh, I want to change it. I want my voice to be there, right? You enter the PIN number, etc. So first you'll hear the existing greeting play. You would then enter the PIN number. The system will recognize it and then change you over to record it over the phone. The system is going to overwrite the existing file that's in place, right? So you had a main menu open hours TTS file play, and then you called in, you entered the PIN, you recorded a new greeting. So that text-to-speech greeting that you typed in originally, that is gone, right? It's just you overwrote it with your voice. However, the file name stays the same. Right, so that's something you want to be aware of. All right, then we got professional recording services. When you click order, this will take you to actually open up a new tab, take you to a different website hosted by Snap Recordings. They have like 100 voice actors and actresses to choose from. They have different versions of English, Spanish, and French. They can do multilingual greetings. They also have hold treatment. They handle their own billing. They, basically they charge your credit card. Then they deliver it to you via email, and then you would simply upload your own file. All right, settings. First up, we have number of retries on missed dial. Typically, 1 is enough. Some people want 2 or 3. But this is how many times your inbound caller can make a mistake. Right? So they automatically get 1 play, right? 1 playing of your greeting and 1 attempt. Now, when I have it set to 1 here, I'm giving them a second attempt. Like, let's say children were screaming in the back of my car as I was trying to listen to this, and I hit 3 by accident, which is not a valid option. System would wait a little bit and then replay the greeting and let me make a second attempt. If I fail, right, I choose a wrong option, then on this system, it's going to send me to the default action directory. If I don't have a default action, then this call would end. Right, the system would say, we did not recognize your entry, and say goodbye. Right, dialing timeout. This is how much time the system waits after it hears a button press before it assumes the inbound caller is done. Right, so in that sample or the example, right, I called in and I pressed 3. The system waits for a count of 10 to make sure I was done. Right, so I could have entered extra digits to try to get to an extension, for example. Once that timer expires, then it says, oh, okay, what is that a valid option? And in this case, no. So then it would end the call, right, or send it to the default action. Right, allow outside recording. By default, this is off, by the way. But again, if you turn it on, then you can call in from a cell phone or landline and record your main greeting over the phone. Allow dialing extensions. This is by default on. But basically, that means your inbound caller, they can enter an extension number and get to it. Right? If I turn this off, that means your inbound caller, they can only press these 2 menu options. Anything else they enter would be invalid in this case. And then lastly, we have suppress dialing of invalid entry. By default, actually, this is off. Basically, and what that means is when someone calls in and they hit a wrong button, the system tells them you hit a wrong button. And then on that last attempt, it will say, we did not recognize your entries and goodbye. Right? If you turn this on, you suppress that message. right? So that way your customer won't know that they pressed the menu option, but the greeting will play again. And on that final attempt, the system will either end the call or send them to the default action. And there won't be any other indication from the system. Now, any changes you make under the main menu, the greetings, or the settings, you need to click Save here. Right? It takes you back to your incoming call handling page. You need to click Save Changes here as well. Right? So you're clicking Save twice. Right, next up, we have, there we go. That was weird. All right, so the second option here, this is your live operator answer option, right? So you're giving someone a chance to answer the call first. If they're not able to pick up, goes to your virtual receptionist. Now, this is a pull down, so I can select any of my users. I can send it to a call queue, right? I can send it to a specific phone, right? I can send it to a media file. Now, I don't recommend the media file because that means your customer is going to hear two greetings, right? They'll hear this initial greeting play, and then when it ends, they're going to go to the virtual receptionist and hear a second greeting. Right? You can send it to a ring group, and then potentially a secondary attendant. Right. So now in this case, right, calls are going to my front desk ring group, right? So my receptionist team. If they're not able to answer the call, then the system sends it back to my virtual receptionist, where they have these menu options and a greeting will play. All right. Third option is similar to the second in the fact that I can offer the call to a user, a device, a queue, a media file, a group, etc. And then I have the option here to skip to voicemail, and then I can choose what voicemail box it goes to. Right, and this is something I would typically see more often under a holiday setting for a small business. This last option here, this would be sending it to an alternative attendant. That only applies if you have multiple auto attendants on your account, which is what we're about to talk about next. Or soon, I should say. Main conference number, you can have multiple conference numbers, right? I can add from spare or by new numbers. I can also enter in a custom greeting. This is a text-to-speech greeting, so you have that 250 character limit. Even if I disable this, right, and leave it as is, right, whenever you call in, the system says welcome to the conference, and then prompts the person to enter the conference room number and PIN number. All right, the main fax box, you can have the one main fax box phone number. If you click Edit Fax Box right here, it's going to open up a new window. So first up, we have the inbound notification. This is you want to put an email address here. That email address will get an email every time someone sends a fax in. Now, if someone dials your main fax box number, right, hears those fax tones, goes, oh, whoops, wrong number, and hangs up, this person still gets an email just letting them know there was a failed inbound fax attempt. So something to be aware of. And then lastly, we have the email permissions. This is for your outbound faxing permissions. So you could put an email address here, but it's really designed to put your company domain here. So that way everyone at your business can send a fax out. They don't necessarily have to be a user on your account. All right, they just have to have, in this case, a VirtualPBX.com email address. And then you would click on Save Changes. All right, auto attendance. This is a plan-specific feature and allows you to have secondary auto attendance. The two most common use cases we run across for this is for someone who wants submenuing. So when calls come in to your virtual receptionist, you can have a greeting say, for English, press 1, for Spanish, press 2. Right? Those two menu options, 1 and 2, you would then create under here, under auto attendance. So you would have a Spanish attendant and an English attendant. Those two attendants would have their own greetings, right? The Spanish one would be in Spanish. And the menu options that you would create there would then go to your Spanish-speaking staff members. The other use case we come across is for an account that has multiple small businesses, right? That these small businesses have their own phone numbers, they have their own main greetings, right? But calls come in, they're answered by the same staff people, right? So you can have a dog walking business and a cleaning business, right? Both would have their own phone numbers, both would have probably very different main greetings, right? But you can have the same staff members answer calls for both of those businesses. Right, you click on Add Attendant up here at the top. You give it a name and an extension number. Then you would click on Create Attendant. Once you're here, then you would click on the name. This is where you decide, is it standalone, unavailable in main menu, that means it's standalone, or is it a submenu, like Spanish, where it's available in main menu. Right, you click on that to flip it between the two options. Then you have a phone numbers box here for the attendant. This is where you would add a phone number to an attendant. So that, especially in the case of a standalone attendant, here are the extension numbers. Now, for anything that has an extension number, right, you can change the extension number. I usually recommend add extension first, put in the new extension number, right? Click on Save Changes, then unassign the old one, and then save changes. And then lastly, you have the little wrench icon here under Settings. And you notice here I have open hours and holidays, right? And then the virtual receptionist. Now, your attendants, they're going to follow your open hours that you set up under main number, and the holidays, right? And your after hours and your lunch hours, right? It's all going to follow the same open and closing hours as your main account. All right, devices shows your devices on the account. Green means it's registered, so we can send calls to it. Right, red means it's not registered, so we can't send calls to it. And then down here at the bottom, black, that means you turned it off. Up here at the top, you can add devices. First up is SIP phone. This is that physical VoIP device. And you have these manufacturers to choose from. Some, like Yealink, they have a lot of models to choose from. Some, like Obahai, not so many. So you would find your manufacturer and then find the model of the phone you're going to use. Then you need to give it a name, right? You can say Bob's phone. And then you need the MAC address. The MAC address is unique to each device. It's often a sticker on the back of the phone. If the phone's plugged in, usually under like menu status or basic settings, is where you can also get the MAC address information. But you would enter that here, and then you click on Create Device. The only other thing you would have to do then is assign that device to one of your users. In terms of our dashboard, you're done. However, for the VoIP phone, you have to access that phone's web user interface, which means you have to get the IP address, which is also typically under your basic settings of that phone. You would enter that IP address into the address bar of your browser to connect to that phone's web user interface. You then need to add or enter in the provisioning section URL, basically telling the phone, hey, go to this website to get your config file. You would click Save or Update or Confirm, and then tell the phone to auto provision. It will go out to the website, grab that config file. It's going to reboot a couple times. When it's done rebooting, it should show up as a green device up here in your dashboard, and then you're ready to make and receive calls. For the specifics of that, you want to go to our support pages, and on the right, about a third of the way down, you're looking for a document called Auto Provisioning Phones. You can also just use a search bar for Auto Provisioning Phones, and that should take you to the document as well. For each of these manufacturers, we'll have screenshots, the specific syntax for that URL, and in some cases, a couple settings to double check. Just follow those screenshots and those instructions, and you should be able to get the phone to connect. Cell phone and landline are basically the same, right? You give it a name, and then you put +1 area code and phone number. Then you click on Create Device. Now, when Dash sends a call to a cell phone, let's see. There we go. Oops. So this is the default setup for a cell phone or a landline. So call comes through the Dash, then we pass it on to your cell phone. Your cell phone rings, you pick it up. When you pick up, you're going to hear, "This is a forwarded call. Please press 1." When you press 1, you tell the system, yes, you're there, and yes, you want to take the call. It then connects you to the other person, and you can begin talking. That's great if I'm actually sending calls to my cell phone. However, if I added a cell phone, but actually I'm sending calls to an automated answering service to handle my after-hours calls, well, that automated answering service can't press 1, right? It doesn't know when to do that. Or it doesn't have fingers on top of it. So what you would do is click here in front of allow use of cell phone's voicemail. So now when we offer a call to this phone number, right, we hear that pickup tone, we connect the call. We don't wait for the 1 to be pressed. Again, great for automated answering service, maybe not great if it's going to my cell phone, right? Because if my cell phone voicemail picks up, the system still treats that like a connected call, so that inbound caller ends up on my personal cell phone's voicemail box. Now, some of our customers do want that, so they set it up this way. Others do not. And then this one here, keep original caller ID. So let's say customer Mary calls into your system, gets sent over to your cell phone. On your cell phone, you're going to see customer Mary's phone number. And then you don't recognize it. You're like, I don't know that number. I've gotten 3 calls about extending my auto warranty, and I'm tired of them. I'm just going to let it go to voicemail. If it's legit, I'll call them back. Well, maybe that's not efficient, because maybe by the time you called Mary back, she's moved on to one of your competitors. So what you could do is here under keep original caller ID, you can uncheck it, right? Click Save Changes. And so now, when the call is offered to you, instead of seeing customer Mary's phone number, you see your main company number that you set up here under company caller ID. So that way, hopefully you recognize your main phone number for your business, right? Oh, that's a work call. That's worth me answering to see if, if it's a sale or not. Soft phone, please read this message. It basically refers to wireless VoIP technology, and you might not be at the location that the system has associated with this phone number. So you don't want to send emergency services to the wrong place. And here you give it a device name, and you would click on Create Device. Now, this new soft phone is a third-party soft phone. So let's say you're using a soft phone from Counterpath. You would use the username, click on the SIP password box to see the SIP password. So you would copy this. And then you would also copy and paste the realm. Those are the 3 pieces of information you would need to program that soft phone application to work with us. The same would apply to a physical VoIP phone that didn't show up into the SIP phone list. Now, if you want to add a VirtualPBX soft phone, you need to do that on the users page, which we'll be getting to shortly. Right? But on the devices page, you can only add a third-party soft phone. Landline is the same as cell phone. You can add a web phone on the devices page, but the web phone has a login that's associated with the user it's assigned to. So I usually find it easier to assign it directly on the user. All right, next up is the Greetings tab. This shows all your media files on the account. You notice here I have a main menu open hours TTS, and I probably have others, right? Like I have a main after hours one down here. But here's another main open hours menu just beneath that. So you have the name, the source, right? TTS, text to speech. Upload means you uploaded the file. Recording means it was recorded over the phone. You have the option here to download each of these files so you can listen to them to see if they're still relevant. And then you have the little wrench icon here. And this is where you can change the name or simply delete the greeting if it's no longer relevant. Right, so after you do a text-to-speech greeting, you'd want to come here, find it, click on the wrench, and then change the name to something you can recognize or that at least identifies it to you. Groups, right? These are departments, ring groups or hunt groups, they're also called. Up here at the top, you click Add Group. You give it a name and an extension number. And then you click and drag your staff members that you want to be in the group. Then you click on Create Group. Once a group is created, you can click on its name. Right, so you can change the name at any time. And then you have the group call attempts. This is basically how many times do you want the system to offer the call to your staff members. Right now I have it at 1, but if you see, I have little arrows to the right, and I can click on that to increase it to 2. Save changes. So now any call that comes to my front desk group from a menu option or a transfer or someone enters the extension number, right, they're going to be offered twice to my group members. Speaking of the members, if I click on the members box here, right, I see my members of my group going down, and across the top here, these are timestamps, and this last one you can edit. Now the default is 120 seconds, right, 2 minutes. I can click distribute. So now I'm equalizing the amount of time calls are offered to my staff members, but it's going in this order. I can change the order. I can click and drag on people and move them around. Now, at this point, I haven't actually changed the ring order, right? Because David is still first, followed by Fred. But if I click distribute, now Fred's first, right? And David's at the very end. These are sliders, so you can click and drag them. Oops. So I can also set up, last ringing, or ring all, as it's sometimes referred to as. Just so. So now call comes in and it rings all my staff members at the same time until one of them picks up. A couple things to keep in mind about calls coming to a user from a ring group. Right? If your staff member has multiple devices, all of them are going to ring when the call comes in from the ring group. Right? There's a user feature called Follow Me. The ring group does not pay attention to that user feature. It just says, nope, you're in a group, all your devices are going to ring. Likewise, let's say call comes in and Fred answers that call. If the phone he uses to answer that call has call waiting, right, and a second call comes in, he will hear a beep in his phone, right, in his ear, letting him know, hey, someone else tried to reach him, until one of the other staff members picks up the call. Right. Now, in terms of groups, you can answer calls with cell phones, landlines, or VoIP phones. Right? The system doesn't care. Just realize that when a call gets to a cell phone or a landline, that's an endpoint, right? The user cannot transfer, right? With a VoIP phone, your users can transfer calls to other extensions or groups, etc. So any changes here, you would just click on Save Changes. The extension box, again, you can have multiple extensions or you can change the extension number. Groups can have their own phone numbers, just like here I have under trainee. Bear in mind that this phone number will not pay attention to your hours of operation, right? This phone number is available 24/7. So if you have users with their personal cell phone in this group, they could get calls at all hours of the day or night. Right, groups have features. So first up is ringback. Oh, so by default, when a call comes into a group, that inbound caller will hear that ringing sound, right? As soon as we get, basically, call comes into the group, we offer the call to your group members. When the system detects the ringing sound coming back from the devices we're reaching out to, then your inbound caller hears that ringing sound. Now, if you enable ringback, what you're actually doing is you can upload a media file, right? .ogg, .mp3, .wav, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. So you could play a kind of hold music while they wait for someone to answer. The drawback here is that if we don't get that ringing sound from the first people we're reaching out to, then nothing plays, right? Because this is replacing that ringing sound. So if we don't get that ringing sound, there's nothing to replace. Next action, if you enable this, what do you want to do if no one picks up? Where are you going to send the caller? Right? You can send them back to your virtual receptionist. You can send it to a secondary attendant. You can send it to a call queue. You can send it to a specific phone. You can send it to a different ring group. You can send it to a specific user or a voicemail box. And then click Save Changes. Allow call forward. If you enable this, that means your users can make use of call forwarding, i.e. they're not at their normal desk phone or whatever phone they sit at. And then lastly, we have caller ID prepend. If you enable this, you can put text in front of the caller ID that shows up on your staff members' VoIP phones, right? Give them a heads up what the call might be about. Technically, groups can have call recording. That is something our support team has to enable for you. So if that's something you want, you just want to email support@virtualpbx.com saying that you want call recording on your group or groups. All right, next up we have numbers. Shows all your phone numbers on the account and where they're going. Right, you got the little gear icon here, so you can always adjust the caller ID, etc. It starts you off on numbers in use. Your spare numbers, these are the numbers you're not currently using. If you want to remove a number from your account, you would click on the box in front of it, and now you see I have the option here to click delete. I confirm the deletion, and now it's no longer on my account. You can buy numbers here, right? Local or toll-free, so I can add them right here to my spare numbers. Port, this begins the port process. Just need it local or toll-free. Then the system wants you to upload a copy of your bill. It's going to ask you then for the phone numbers that you want to port and the address associated with those phone numbers. It's going to also ask you for the billing telephone number and the account number. Then you will ask you to download a blank letter of agency or LOA, and then upload a completed and signed LOA. Now the LOA asks for things like your company name and address. That should be what your current carrier has on file for your phone numbers, right? So if with VirtualPBX, right, your company is ABC Cleaners, but you're porting from Comcast, and Comcast you're listed as XYZ Cleaners. On the LOA, you should put XYZ Cleaners. The address, again, should match what in this case Comcast has on file for you. It does need to be signed. Now, that can be a digital signature, right? A little signature file that you drop in there, or you could print it out, sign it, and scan it back in. Porting for toll-free numbers is typically about 3 to 5 business days, assuming everything is correct. Local numbers average about 2 to 3 weeks. If there is a problem, we'll get a rejection email from the other carrier. It doesn't always give us specific information. Like it can say address mismatch, but it won't tell us if it's the street address or the zip code that's wrong, for example. It doesn't say there's an address mismatch. Now, in that kind of situation, we do double check to make sure we didn't, put in an extra digit or got digits transposed. But once we verify that, we do let you know, hey, we got this rejection. You need to check with your carrier to find out why or what address they have on file for you. Caller ID numbers, this is a new feature that's not yet fully implemented. Now, part of it is so you can comply with stir shaken, which is to verify VoIP phone numbers IDs. Basically, you claim it as your own. So when you add a phone number here, the system will then call that number. So you want to make sure you can answer it directly, right? So I can assign it to a user, for example. It's going to read off the phone number to you and then a 4-digit PIN number. And then it'll ask you to enter that PIN number on the page here. And that way you verify the number with the system. Now you can add in the future, which is something that engineers are making sure works properly, you'll be able to add other phone numbers here, right? So you can add your personal cell phone number or a landline number. Still, it does that verification process, but then you should be able to select these numbers as your part of your outbound caller ID options. That is, again, still being worked on, that last part. All right, users shows your users on the account. Gray suit or gray person icon, right? That's the standard user. The blue suit means they're a system admin. Up here at the top, you click Add User. You enter in their first and last name, and then the email address used for login. This needs to be unique for each person, right? So I could not use support@virtualpbx.com for 5 different people, or even 2 people. I could only use it for 1. As an admin, you create the password for them in this field here, and then their main extension number. Now, this system started off with extension 1000, so it's saying the next available in that series is 1012. You can edit this. Right, I can click delete and make that an extension number. All right, first, then we got create voicemail box for the user. Right, this voicemail box is intrinsically tied to the user. So let's say I create this user, then I add a VoIP phone to them. That user can then pick up their VoIP phone, hit *98. That will automatically log them into this voicemail box that was created for them. The system will prompt them to create a PIN number, and then it will then prompt them to record their voicemail greeting, right? Get them all set up. Then we got include in the user directory. So they can be in the smart PBX directory, dial by name directory, whatever you want to call it. You can always change this later. Then we have send emails to an alternate address. So the email address used for login, right? The system uses that by default to send that email address voicemails, right? Call came into the user, they weren't able to pick up, the voicemail goes to the email address used for login. Same with their password recovery, etc. Now, if for some reason that person doesn't want to use that email address, right? They want things to go to their personal email address, or there's, they have a secondary email address they want them to go to instead, then as an admin, you would need to set this up, right? Click on the box in front of send emails to an alternate address, and then enter in that different email address. And then this one I think is also important, send credentials to the user. So that way they know how to log in. If you just need to create the one user, you just click on create user. Otherwise, if you need to add more people, create user and add another. And then you can click on their name. You can always change their name. You can change their credentials, meaning you can change their email address or password. You also have the option here to send them the pass that reset email if they're just simply having trouble logging in. Voicemail box PIN. Right, you just enter in 4 digits. Again, for your VoIP phone users, you don't have to do this, right? They can just log in automatically that first time. But for your cell phone and landline users, you would need to enter something there. Here's your option to send to an alternate address, as well as someone in a user directory. This pull down allows you to change a user into an admin, or an admin into a user. This is your time zone. So that's good for their voicemail timestamps, for example. Normally I just do a search for major city in my time zone. This is your display language for the user, right? So if you have someone who's more comfortable reading web pages in German, for example, that's one of the options. You can select it. It's like French, German, Russian, and English. Ringing timeout, measured in seconds, the default is 20. This is how much time the system will try to reach the devices on a user. Now, default of 20 seconds is plenty of time for a landline or a VoIP phone. However, if you're sending calls just to a cell phone, 20 seconds may not always be enough. Right? Basically, for PBX systems in general, right? Call comes into the PBX system, call gets sent out to a landline, right? So we're sending it to the landline provider. They say, oh, we know exactly where it is here, send it here. Versus from a PBX system, calls going out to a cell phone provider says, hold on a second, we need to find them first, right? Ping cell phone towers, says, okay, got them, then sends a call through. That delay is why you might want a longer ring time for cell phone users, like 45 seconds. Users can have multiple extensions, or you can change out their extensions if you need to. Likewise, you can add a phone number directly to a user. Either add from spare or by new numbers. Like in groups, this phone number is available 24/7. Right? So this looks like a cell phone here. So if someone calls this number at 3 a.m., that cell phone will ring at 3 a.m. So something to be aware of. Speaking of devices, you can add new devices here, right? So you can add SIP phones directly to a user, which I find easier. Cell phone and soft phone, right? You still get that warning message. But you notice here, right? It starts off as a third-party soft phone, but I have a toggle here that says use third-party application. If I click on that, now it's flipped to say use VirtualPBX application, but it's telling me that this address already has one. So each email address can have one VirtualPBX soft phone, right? So either at that point, I can then send to an alternate address. And if I have one available, which I don't know that I do, right? But I can try this one here. Oh, that one's still in use. But basically, if you have your email address that isn't already associated with a soft phone, you would click on this use third-party soft phone, you would give it a name, and then create device, and then save changes. When you click on save changes, then this user gets an email with their login credentials for the VirtualPBX soft phone app and download links, so then they can download and log in. And then likewise for the web phone, I usually try to denote if it's a web phone or not, just so it's easier to see. I do save changes. And so now Aaron, he can go to, he'll have an icon, under here for the web phone. And then, or he can just go to webphone.virtualpbx.net. He'll use his dash login information, and then he can use Chrome or Firefox to make and receive calls. All right. User features. The first one, caller ID number, is only available to a user that has their own phone number, because they're going to use that as their default outbound caller ID. When you enable that feature, right? If I turn this back off, whenever Aaron makes an outbound call from, say, his web phone that I just added to him, then the phone number that shows up on his outbound caller ID, right, this one here, call forwarding. Now, your users can turn call forwarding on themselves, right? They have the option to do that through the user portal. If they're a VoIP phone user, they can do it directly from the VoIP phone. But you can turn it on yourself as well as an admin. You just select desk phone or mobile. You put +1 area code and phone number, save changes. Failover mode is for VoIP phone users, right? The system will detect when their VoIP phone is not registered and a call happens to come to that user at that time. The system will automatically, under failover mode, forward to the phone number you designate. Hot desking is another VoIP feature. This allows, or this is best used in like a shared office environment or hybrid scheduling where you may not have desks for everyone because you don't have everyone come in every day of the week. So today's Tuesday, I came into the office. I can sit down at desk number 7 with hot desk enabled, right? I pick up that phone, I hit *11. That turns on hot desking on that VoIP phone. The system asks me for my hot desk ID, right? So that in this case, 1008. And then it will tell me that phones will be sent to, or calls will be sent to this phone. So for the rest of my workday, right, calls that are coming to my user are going to ring at the phone I'm sitting at. Same if I'm in any ring group or queue, right, calls would come to me at that phone. End of my day, I pick up the handset again, I hit *12 to turn off hot desking. Right, let's say the next time I come into the office isn't until Thursday, but someone's already sitting at desk number 7. All right, I say, hi, Alicia, go on, and I sit down at desk 23. Do the same thing, okay? Pick up the handset, hit *11, enter my hot desk ID, and then calls are coming to me at that desk. Voicemail box, right? We created this when the user was created. One thing to point out, transcription is a plan-specific feature, right? That's just simply the system listens to the voicemail and tries to type it out in the email it sends to you about the email or the voicemail notification. But this is a default setup in terms of you have voicemail to email enabled, meaning that the system, is going to attach the voicemail message to the email, right? So call came into Aaron, he wasn't able to answer it. He'll get an email saying, hey, you got a voicemail. In that email, he's going to know like the date, the time, the phone number that they were calling, phone number it came from. There'll be an attachment, an MP3 file. He can double click that on his computer and listen to it. Right? If transcription is enabled, that means he would also have what the system thought the voicemail said to the best of its ability. Right? We should still listen to it to verify it. Now, one thing to keep in mind, voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. After that, the voicemail box is full and no more messages can be left. So you may also want to click the checkbox here to delete the messages after the message has been sent. Users can have their own fax box if you want them to. You have the option of using a phone number or an extension. Now, if you use an extension, they can only receive faxes. They're not going to be able to send faxes out because the system will look and say, oh, they have a fax box. I'm using their personal fax box details to send the fax out. Meaning that in this case, 399 is the extension number. That's what it uses for the outbound caller ID. That's going to cause it to fail because it's not a full phone number. So I typically recommend using a full phone number if you want a user to have their own fax box number, assuming it's a person, right? If it's just you set up a user to just accept a particular kind of fax, then you can just leave it as an extension. Now, another thing to be aware of about using fax box extensions, the person faxing, right? They have to call your main number, right? Listen to the greeting, then enter the extension number they're faxing to, and then send fax. So on physical fax machines, usually that's not a big deal, right? They either have a handset or speakerphone that they can listen in, or they can do something like star star or comma comma to give space after the phone number to then enter in that extension number. Email to fax services, right, or electronic fax services may not have the ability to send to an extension, or that might be an extra fee associated with it, or a premium service. Conference Bridge. If you enable Conference Bridge on a user, then the other thing you have to do is give them a conference room PIN number. Click on Save Changes. Your user can change their PIN numbers for the conference room via the user portal. Follow Me is for users with multiple devices. You would first click Enable, and then you have to tell the system which devices should it ring to. Right, just click Uncheck over here, and then you see like a group. This is a ring duration here, and I can click Distribute. Likewise, I can change the order and click Distribute, and then Save Changes. Also, I could leave something unchecked, right? Leave it under leave it checked under Do Not Ring, so then it only rings that one device. But again, that's only going to work for calls that are coming directly to the user, right? If Aaron's in a ring group, the system will ignore the Follow Me settings and ring all his available devices. Music on hold, you can enable this and upload custom music on hold for each of your users. .wave, .mp3, .ogg, ported in mono under 1 megabyte. Find the file, click the up arrow icon, and then Save Changes. Customize call recording. So you can record calls on your system. For a user, when you first enable it, it looks like this, because the system wants to know what kind of calls you're going to record. Right? Inbound internal, right? That would be coworker Bob called Aaron. Right? Inbound external, customer Mary called Aaron. Right? Outbound external means Aaron called coworker Bob. Outbound external means Aaron called customer Mary. And then Save Changes. And then Do Not Disturb. If you enable this, that means the user is not going to be accepting calls. Calls that go directly to that user will go to voicemail. If they're in a group or a queue, they are skipped. All right, voicemail boxes. You see here all the voice boxes on the count, right? Some are associated with users, others are not. You can create your own up here at the top. You just give it a name, a voicemail box number, and a PIN number. Click on Create Voicemail Box. Once a voicemail box exists, you can click on the wrench icon here, right? So you can change its name, voicemail box number, or the PIN number. Typically, you don't want to change the voicemail box number on a user. Under Advanced, Greeting Media, this is where you can upload a voicemail greeting to a voicemail box or temporary one. If one is selected in temporary, that's going to supersede the media file, right? Until you put the temporary back to none. Right? That's the vacation or out of office voicemail message. And then especially for a voicemail box you just created here, you want to make sure there's a greeting associated with it. Then you would want to go to recipients. For your user voicemail boxes, right, they already have a built-in recipient. But for any voicemail box you create on the voicemail boxes page, you'd want to click here and then add an email address. If you need to add more, you would just click Add. Otherwise, you would click Save Changes. And then under Advanced Options, once there's a media file in place and once you have recipients, then you can click on Already Set Up. And then you have the option here, right, to attach the messages as well as delete after notification. And then you would click on Save Changes. Advanced Routing, this is home to Direct Inward System Access, otherwise known as DISA. What DISA does is it allows you to call in with a cell phone or landline to log in over the phone and then make an outbound call. Now, when you make that outbound call, it's not your cell phone number showing up as the outbound caller ID, it's your main company number. So you would click on this. Now, one thing I should point out for DISA, this is not enabled on new accounts right off the bat. This is something you'd have to request from our account services team. You would click enable once it's been added to the account. And then it automatically generates a PIN number for you. Now in this setup, that means you could set it up as a menu option from your virtual receptionist. I do not recommend that. I recommend clicking edit settings here and then add an extension. Give it an extension number that's not in a series with your other extensions. And then click on Save Changes. So now, right, any of your staff members, they're going to need to know this extension number and this PIN number, right? They call your main number that rings to your virtual receptionist. They enter this extension number, then the system will prompt them for the PIN number. They'll hear dial tone. They enter area code and phone number they're trying to reach. They'll call out, and instead of their cell phone number showing up, right? Go back here. It's this phone number that shows up as the outbound caller ID. Now, part of the reasons why this feature is not available on new accounts right off the bat is that this is a way that someone could figure out your PIN number, and in this case, the extension number. They can make outbound calls on your account, and you wouldn't know about it right away, which means they could rack up your bill. And as far as the system is concerned, they're legitimate calls, right? Which not a happy thing to have to pay for someone else's calls. So that's why even on here, I disable it right off the bat. So I don't have to worry about this account being compromised. But that does lead us right into call logs. The call logs allow you to see your call activity. Right now, this is the calls I've had in here for today. Right, but if I go to this month, right, I have a bit more showing up. You see here, this call came in, and it went to this device, right, Cody test, and they spoke for almost 8 minutes. Now, here you have a little fire hydrant icon. This will create an email that will go to support@virtualpbx.com. You're going to want to type in the body of the email what you experienced, right? Bad call quality, or your phone didn't actually ring. It'll give us some indication of what went wrong. Additionally, under any of these tabs, including custom, you can download the file, and it's going to be a CSV file. The system will let you go back 1 year. After that, we would have to have our engineers take a look. They can go back up to an additional 6 months, so going back up to 18 months. Anything further than that, we cannot recover. So if the call log detail is something you'll need to have for like some sort of compliance reasons, you're going to want to make sure you download them on a regular basis. If you have a heavy call volume, you might have to do a custom search for each week and download each week versus doing one full month. Feature codes. I've already talked about a couple of these, but these are ways for VoIP phone users to access different features within Dash. This is also a page on our support pages, so you don't have to log in to your account to look at them all the time. There's also another document under the support pages called the phone command cheat sheet. It's a single page PDF. It has a brief description of each one of these, so that way your staff could make use of them more effectively. All right, so that's the dashboard. Next up, we have ACD queues. ACD stands for Automatic Call Distribution. This is a call center feature. It is an add-on. It's something you can add on to specific plans. We also have ACD Queues Pro, which is also an add-on to additional plans. Now, not every plan you can add on queues to, so that's something you would have to talk to our account services team about, as well as what the pricing is for the queues, because they keep changing things on me and I don't always keep track. So I apologize for that. All right, so you can click on Add New Queue. I'm just going to click on the gear icon here of an existing queue. You give a queue a name, and then it can have either a phone number or an extension. It cannot have both. It's a difference between it and groups. Then under configuration, you have routing strategy. Oops. Okay, so first up is round robin. This will equalize out among your staff members over time. You also have most idle, meaning who's been waiting for the call the longest gets the next call. You have least offered, which means the least amount of calls that were offered to a user, both connected or not. Right? So let's say Bob and Mary, I logged in my queue. If Bob's been offered 20 calls, Mary's been offered 5 calls, Mary gets the next call that comes in. Now, there's also least calls. That's the least amount of connected calls. So in that scenario, Bob and Mary, right, 20 and 5, let's say Bob's only spoken to 2 people, right? So 2 connected calls. Mary's spoken to all 5 of her people that she was offered to. Under least calls, Bob gets the next call that comes in, right? And if you want to take this another step further, under least offers or least calls, right? Bob and Mary have been working for a couple hours, and then Dylan starts his shift. He logs into the queue. He's getting the next call that comes in, right? Because he has 0 offered and 0 connected calls. So under either least calls or least offers, Dylan's getting the next call until he can equalize with somebody. Now, in that situation, let's say Dylan, gets a call right away. He's going to call, another call comes in. Then under least calls, it would go to Bob. Under least offers, it would go to Mary. Right? Because Dylan's already on a call, so he's busy. Then we have hold treatment. You can upload a media file. Now, under ACD Queues Pro, you have more options for the hold treatment. You can have multiple media files, right? Play in different sequence. You can announce position in line, announce the expected wait time. Just so I don't forget, we do have a demo video of the ACD Queues Pro on our YouTube channel. Just go under videos and you should see it there. Queue timeout measured in seconds. This is how much time a person can wait on hold, right? One of your inbound callers. The queue call limit, you can limit the number of people who are in the queue, right? Meaning number of inbound callers. So if I change this to 4, that means only 4 people can wait on hold. That's on top of whoever's already speaking to my staff members. Right? Now, if I put this back to 0, that means there's no limit. Timeout immediately if empty. That means if I have no staff members logged in and that call happens to come into the queue, the system will treat that caller as if they already hit that 3,600 seconds. All right, escalation call flow after timeout. Where are you sending the caller after that 3,600 seconds? And basically you have this pull out. None means the call would just end. When you see a person's name in their smart PBX call flow, that means it's offering it to that user. It would eventually get to that user's voicemail box. There would be options here for group, right? Site checkering group, etc. Main call flow that would go to your main voicemail box. Or sorry, that would go to your main virtual receptionist, pardon me. Right, you can send it to other queues. Poochwalk is one of my auto attendants. That's in Spanish. Etc. All right, and then 0 out to call flow. This means you're giving your customer a chance to press 0 while they're waiting on hold. When you do so, where do you want them to go? I can send it to the front desk group, for example. All right, agent behavior, agent recovery timer. This is how much time an agent has after they're done with a call before the system will offer them a second call from this queue. We usually see anywhere from 0 to 30 seconds for most instances. Force away on reject or missed. If this is enabled, that means if your agent misses a call, right, your staff member wasn't able to answer, the system puts them in away mode, meaning they're not going to be offered calls until they mark themselves as ready once again. And then agent connect timeout is 20 seconds. Currently, in queues, you can only accept calls with a VoIP device. We typically recommend soft phones or a SIP phone. You can use web phones. Although I personally haven't used a web phone in a queue. I've only ever used a soft phone, and that's worked perfectly fine. And then any changes here, you click on Save Changes. If you were just creating it for the first time, you would click on Create Queue. Once you've created a queue, over here on the left, you click on the little members icon, right? Person with a headset. This list under call center members, these are all the people that are available to be in my various queues. If I click on Manage Members, right, the list on the right, again, these are people who are already associated with my queues. If I want to add someone, I would just click on their name, and I could add multiple, and I could then click on Add as Members, and now they show up over here on the right. Once I've added people, I would click back on the little queues icon here. If I click on the queue name, right, I can add agents. So now I can move, let's say, Jan Test to this group, or this queue, excuse me. Now, it doesn't log them in, right? It just means he's available to be a member of this queue. For managers, they already have to be a member, and then you can move them over to the right, right? And that's just a click and drag and save changes. So for your staff members, I personally just use the website, right? So I log in, I click on ACD queues, I click on Begin Session, and now I'm logged into the queue. Notice I'm red, because, and it says away here and away here. So that means I'm not ready to take a call, right? I've logged in, but I'm not taking calls at this time. Now that first time logging in especially, or like if I'm using a hot desk situation, I want to click on the little phone icon here, and I want to make sure I select my VoIP device that's active. And then once I have done that, back under here under the status bar, I would mark myself as ready. Now I'm green. That means any call comes into this queue can potentially be offered to me. Right? If once I'm on a call, this will turn blue. Right? Say I'm on an inbound call. Yellow is on out or external call, right? A call that's not in the queue, from the queue. That could be outbound. That could be from someone calling my extension directly, etc. And then if I'm gold, that means I'm on wrap-up time. For the pro queues, you have another icon here where you can compare agents to each other, right? It's a performance evaluation, and you can use multiple agents at once. Likewise, under the pro queues, managers can eavesdrop on a call, right? So like if I'm on a call, my manager could then eavesdrop in and listen in, right? They can whisper, right, to help me out with a call, as well as barge in to basically take over the call. When I go to lunch, right, I would mark myself away, and end of my shift, I would just end my session. All right, Blacklist is an included feature once I can click on it. This allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you're blocking from reaching your system, right? So you would click Edit Blacklists. Once you're here, you would click Add to create a brand new list. Or just click on the list that already exists. You give it a name, and then your first choice, are you blocking anonymous? That means if the system does not receive valid inbound caller ID, right, and you turn this on, that means that those anonymous calls aren't getting through. They're going to get busy tone. Otherwise, you click on where it says add number, you put +1 area code and phone number, and you keep clicking add until you're done. Right? Once you're done, you would click on save here, and you go back to settings. You make sure that list is over here on the right under block list, right? Under selected. You would click update. So now any phone number that's on this list, they try to call any of my phone numbers, right? They get a busy tone. Right, dynamic caller ID, this is a plan-specific feature. And this allows you to create rules to change the outbound caller ID from calls from your VoIP phones. So let's turn this one back on, and then we can take a look at it here. So I've named it 408 because whenever any of my VoIP phones dial a 408 phone number, the system will automatically change their outbound caller ID to this 408 phone number, right? So it looks like a local call. The other way you could do it is up here where I created a feature code, right? So *550 is what my staff members would enter on their VoIP phone, and then area code and phone number. And then the system will change their outbound caller ID to match this 323 phone number. So again, it looks like a local call to the person I'm calling. Now on dynamic caller ID, the numbers that you can select to show as your outbound caller ID, they have to be on your account. Faxes, this takes you to the fax manager. So this is available on any account. You would then choose the inbound fax box so you can see where a fax came from and where it was going to. So this one will send it to itself. You can download the file as well as look at the technical details. You go to outbound faxes. You can see here we have several successes and the date, what number it's coming from, so my main fax box, and what number it was going to. Right, number of pages. I can download that file. I can see the technical details. So if I go down to this one here that failed, I can take a look and it just says status failed. Sometimes it gives me additional information. Right, so no available resources. That's basically the system was busy and was not able to fax out. Now, typically under outbound faxes, when you have failures here, that's a failure with the system communicating out, right? So usually a problem on the receiving end, right? We had trouble connecting, right? Could be a busy tone, right? Or we got a weird signal coming back. The email to fax logs, if you have anything here, that means that was a problem the system had processing the document or with the user that sent the document, right? So you would have information here. There would be a little eyeball icon here. You would click on that, and that would give you things like they couldn't find the user, right? In that case, that would be like someone used their personal email address versus their work email address, or like a problem with the document itself, like someone tried to fax a doc or .docx, right? When the system will only accept a PDF or a TIFF. Right, monitor is another plan-specific feature. This allows you to see the status of your staff members, right? So users, whether they're on a call or not, you can see who's available and who's busy. You can also break it down by devices, right? You also have the search bar. And then over here on the left, you can see the active inbound calls as well as any parked calls. You would also see the parking spot number. The number manager, that just takes you back to your spare numbers, so you can buy numbers, port them, etc. Recording manager, this would take you to recordings.virtualpbx.com so you can see your recordings. Likewise, if you have an AWS account, you can link AWS to your Dash account. And in that case, the recording manager would show you what's in your AWS bucket. All right, reports, this would take you to reports.virtualpbx.com. This is for advanced reporting, which is a plan-specific feature. Basically allows you to create your own reports, which is more detailed than the call logs. We do have a demo of this on our YouTube channel, again, under videos. Just look for advanced reporting. Voicemails, this takes you to the voicemail manager. So you can look at various voicemail boxes to see if they have messages. Right, but then you would see if it's new or listened or marked for deletion, when it was received, what phone number it came from, what number they were dialing, and how long. You had options to play it back as well. If you do have a message here as an admin, there's a box here you can click on, and then you can move that voicemail to a different voicemail box. Webhooks, plan-specific feature. You'd actually want to talk to our sales team if you're interested in this, but webhooks allows you to create or link Dash to other software, like to Slack, for example. If you want to see examples of what has been done, you can go to developer.virtualpbx.com. You'll see some of the things we have done and have made work. And then lastly, we have the user portal. Every user has their own portal. Right? So as an admin, I can't see anyone else's user portal, but that's because I can get to everything else anyway. Right? But as my user, right, I get to my own voicemail tab. Now, if your voicemail boxes are set to delete after notification, your users aren't going to see anything here, right? Because it's already deleted, it's already been sent to their email. Call history, they can see their inbound and outbound calls. They can adjust the date to get a better idea. Faxes only really applies for users who have their own fax box. Contact list, this is everything within your Dash account. Your staff members aren't able to adjust this. Right? This is just for their reference. Right? Only admins are able to add, additional users, etc. The conference tab, over to the right, this is where your users would adjust their PIN numbers. Right? And then down below, do people enter in deafened and muted? And do people play entry and exit tones? Up here towards the top, when you're in a conference, right, you can invite other Dash users to your conference. You can lock a conference. You can mute everybody. You can unmute everybody. You can end the conference call. Additionally, as a moderator, you'll have additional information under participants, so you can mute a specific person or even kick a specific person. And then settings and devices, this is where your users would enable their call forwarding themselves. Right, just put +1 area code and phone number and then click save. And then they can see the status of their devices. And that is everything. Let's go back to the dashboard here. Haven't seen any questions, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up for this year. Again, just as a reminder, we are not going to have training the first 2 weeks of 2022, but we will be back on January 18th of 2022. Beyond that, I thank you for your time today, and I wish you a happy new year.